And it starts with an old pair of jeans and an old gown. So what I'm going to say is that you're going to make all the legs and everything straight to cut it. But before you cut the legs as short as I did, you want to measure the skirt and see, you might want to cut them longer and avoid the other part of the sewing that I did. I wanted to be able to use the rest of the legs, so I kind of did them in a different way. So once you choose your length, you're going to go and open up the middle section, so it's no longer pants, but it's all open like that. And you're going to try to cut off the double folded seam of the denim. And you're going to do the same on both sides. And you're going to take those two and put them over each other, fold under, and put them over each other. Now, before I went in to sew it and everything, I tried it on to make sure it was good. Did the same in the back. Make sure it wasn't too tight, too loose, or anything like that. I think I tried the skirt on about 17 times by the time I was done with the whole project. So pin it nicely. So now that that's ready, I'm going to take my gown, my lace old gown, and I'm going to take the side that has the hem already sewn if you want to keep it straight. However, if you end up changing your mind and doing what I did, it doesn't matter which part of the gown you are going to take. So I want to measure to see how much I'm going to need. And I did all of this and then changed my mind. So maybe you should watch the whole video before you start cutting and measuring, so you save yourself a little bit of time. I tell you though, I did have a great time for this Fabric Fun Friday project. It really truly was a great time. What I did do is I cut my panels from the existing panels of the dress so that the seams were already there. But again, I did change my mind on everything. So the purpose of cutting these panels was if I just wanted the lace to be longer on my skirt, but I ended up doing something different that you're going to see soon. I made the skirt that is the length is about my knee or a little bit above my knee. This size lace that I'm cutting is if you wanted a longer T-length skirt. Then it would have been just fine. I do love to use these quilters clips. They just make things so much easier. Now, I did have a older gown to use, but if you need to buy the lace, please go ahead and use my link and get all your beautiful stuff from Joann's. And again, because of my original design, I went ahead and hemmed all of my lace to make all the different panels from my skirt, because that was my original design. And then decided to change my mind. Also, the skirt was too short to make it just like that with the lace from that point where I cut it. So now excuse me while I'm trying the skirt again. So it was a little too short for my taste. So anyway, I went with my plan B that I already had in my mind. I wanted to use the rest of the denim. And so I opened the legs, cut both sides, making sure that I eliminated the double-sided of my of the denim seam. So now I'm going to sew the center seam that we made before. So of course you turn the seam inside out, put your pins in the direction needed for the sewing machine, and I'm just doing a straight stitch. And because it's denim, I'm really not worrying about fraying or anything like that. And we're gonna do the same for front and back, so make sure that your seam and your pins are going the right way. They don't get stuck under, and I'm just doing back stitch, straight seam, and back stitch again. So now it's a skirt. It's no longer it's no longer pants. So I cut all these pieces, and I want to patch them together as panels. And I have this black trim that I want to add. You see what happens when you start creating, you just change your mind and you come up with all pretty new things that you're going to work on. So I just made all different size panels. I didn't want them all the same size. And I just added my lace. Now, I did add my lace, my trim, but I really just wanted to see and measure it and try it on. But you can skip this part and just sew your panels on if you or want to, if you like to measure things properly and just work from the skirt itself. I prefer to try things on right, because it's really hard to measure on myself and make sure that it really fits. So I just pinned it all together, pinned it on my skirt, tried it on, and then I went from there. And I am using those clips. Those clips are just amazing to use, you guys, even though sometimes they just slip out of my hands. You see, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to see if I liked it, if I made enough patches. But now, and I tried it on again. Now on the sewing machine, I am removing, and I'm not making a back seam. I'm just putting one piece over the other and stitching it with a straight stitch all the way down. So I did take the trim off and decided to do the seam first and then go back and stitch my trim on it. Now that all the pieces were together, I'm going back and putting also because I didn't really have too much on the legs part, so I wanted to make sure that everything was good and that I had enough pieces. So I ended up using the whole both sides. I used everything. Okay, now that it's all sewn together with the trim and everything, now I can put my pieces together. So I'm just going to put right side to right side and clip them so that I can go. And I am splitting the seams. Actually, I'm not, because the fabric, the denim was not thick. I just left them laying on one side, and it was not a problem at all because it was a very thin seam. And I like to remove that piece when I'm doing, even though it wasn't necessary, but it made it easier to go around. Again, a straight stitch, and I know that I have to do my seam at about 1/4 of an inch. Actually, I went a little bit more than 1/4 of an inch and a little less than 1/2 an inch, and I'm doing a straight stitch all around. And every time I'm making a seam, I'm of course going back and cleaning off all the extra material, all the extra threads, and all of that. And once I went all around, now I tried the skirt again. I cut that part off, but I didn't want my skirt too tight going toward my knees, so I made the last piece a little wider. It's not an A-line skirt, but you see how it's going a little wider on the bottom. And while I had it on, I figured, let me do a little some in the front. So I made a mark where I want to open it. And I'm opening it up, making a little additional. You see, this is what happens. I change my mind as I go along. So now I'm going to pull my hem, clipping it. And again, I'm just trying to make sure that I've never made this before. Friends, this was my first time doing it. So it was really like trial and error, and I was fine with that. And it was actually a lot of fun. So this is how originally I wanted my lace to go. So I wanted a little bigger part right there, and you see how that cute little slit goes. And then what I wanted to do was to take the other lace. See how you try things on and make it even with the other one and keep going around. But I ended up changing my mind again. So now I'm going to pin the hem, because I am going to go ahead and stitch my hem and making sure that it's even all around. I'm not going to sew it together with my lace. I prefer to do 2 seams just to make sure. And making sure that the skirt is even. And again, I like to try things on. I am a visual kind of person, so I always have to make sure that I see everything. So finishing up my hemline, front and back. Okay, so we're going to go to the machine and sew that up. So I stitched that together. Of course, I'm going to go in and clean up the seams. But now I decided that instead of having the straight lace, I wanted to cut off parts of it, because I kept looking at it and the cut off parts was beautiful and clean. It wasn't going to fray or anything like that. So I decided to cut him off like that and add him to my skirt uneven like that, just like so. So once we sewed the hem in, I went in and tried on to see if I even liked it, and I really, really liked it. And when I tried it on, it looked even better. So I just went around and pinned all of it. And I left about 2 inches on the inside, wrong side of the skirt, just so that I can fold it in and under and sew it neatly, so it wouldn't easily rip when you sit down and stuff like that. And then just kept adding around until I got to the little opening in the front, where instead of putting it flat, I made pleats to give it a little bit more volume right in the front opening. And I did not sew the 2 pieces of lace together where they meet. I just left it open like that. I actually really like that. That's it. Now we go and stitch it all together nicely. Just a simple straight stitch. And I am going over the same thread line of the hem, so I don't have another seam. And I secured the hem one more time. Making sure that my pleats are flat so they sew nicely and they lay nicely even when you're wearing the skirt. And that's it. Always make sure that your pins are turned the right way. So once that's all secured, we finish off the skirt. And it turned out really pretty. I kept adding more and more details, so I cut off a piece of the lace and added onto the pocket and the hem of the skirt. Hope you enjoyed. Make sure you subscribe to see more beautiful Fabric Fun Friday and learn how to sew with me.